And it's all about the very best right there, talking about Caster Semenya. Yes, the South African legend has been in the news in recent times, and the latest has to do with the European Court's ruling that has ruled in our favor in terms of the appeal right there. The European Court of Human Rights did rule in favor of the double 800 meters Olympic champion in a case related to testosterone levels in female athletes. Now, while this does not necessarily require that she will be back to sprinting, it definitely gives a different perspective to the debates raging around testosterone levels in female athletes. Now, joining us to discuss this is Steve Lisile, who is a human rights advocate, the founder and executive director of Access Chapter 2. It's good to have you, Steve. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Good morning to your viewers.
Thank you so much. Quickly, what was your initial reaction when you, heard of the ruling by the European Human Courts? What was your initial reaction to that?
Look, I mean, we welcome this judgment by the court. It's very important that the Athletic Federation hears out fairly and really evaluate this case thoroughly. But it also is an important thing, because my reaction is that it's exciting, it's good time to be speaking about equality and fairness in the process, and also not discriminating athletics or athletes, who may be perceived different, and in terms of whether the rules that have been enacted, who are they applying to? So it's actually good that it's evaluated, it's judged in that manner, and it's actually a course of action that must really make sure that the policies can be improved to really take and respond to the needs of athletics.
Okay, considering this ruling now, how significant is it to athletes who have differences when it comes to sexual development, especially when we also take it, further in terms of gender equality within sports?
Yeah, well, I think, it's quite important that, the policy, and in fact, the board of the federation itself, World Federation itself, needs to really, consider whether they have looked at differences of sex characteristics, individuals, young people, actually athletes, presents, because in fact, Caster was treated unfairly by the federation, and we must never actually run away from the prejudice, the discrimination, and even the unlawful acts that they have acted around. They violated her rights, and you cannot actually force people to be taking hormones to reduce their own natural biological characteristics, and particularly hormones for that matter. So where actually, we also need to be interrogating. A lot of time, these policies that have been developed, particularly in this case, have been developed to really deal with women for that matter, because here we are, this is not necessarily applicable to men. It's often always applicable to women for that matter. Of course, when it comes to men, then there's dynamics about where there's competitiveness without questioning, yourself as your sex and your expression for that matter. And I think the court has, brought about a time of reflection, a need for all of us to do a just process, but ensure inclusivity and diversity is respected.
Okay, let's look at the broader implication of this ruling now, especially for federations and governments. You said earlier that the federation did fail her. So what does this ruling mean when it comes to federations safeguarding athletes who have differences in sexual development?
I think first is that the federation must link back to what the World Health Organization has done. Just about a few years ago, I think about 2017, the World Health Organization depathologized, gender dysphoria and so forth, and actually has really treated elements about how you respect diversity for that matter, and that you cannot just diagnose things all the time in a way that actually is also invasive to people's bodily autonomy for that matter. And in this case of Caster's bodily autonomy has questioned, has been interrogated, has been persecuted. And in fact, that's exactly what it is. Caster was globally persecuted, even by the Federation itself. So this judgment requires an extent deeply analysis of whether the policies have oversight, really ignored even guidance by the World Health Organization on depathologization, and also that whether these policies can be enacted. It's a clarion call to the Federation, but it's also a clarion call to governments to look at their own policies.
Okay, finally, how does this affect, other athletes? We know quite well it's not only Caster Semenya who has been dealing with this for quite some time. So with this ruling, how do you think this changes the landscape for other athletes pursuing legal, redress?
Look, I think the point here is that this case is, leading a pathway, not only just for Caster Semenya, but it's leading a pathway for other athletes, for that matter, so that they don't continue to also face human rights violation within the sports or sporting sector. I think it's quite important that it also be treated closely. We've seen it. It did not happen only to Caster. Many athletes from Namibia, Kenya, and Mozambique, many of them have been exposed to this human rights violation. So I think take this as a case study, but also the Federation must take other cases to look at exactly where have they gone wrong and how to improve. You can only look at this from a progressive approach. And if you look at it from a regressive approach, there shall never be improvement of anything.
Okay, and progress is definitely what we all seek in terms of gender equality, in terms of fairness, transparency in the world of sports. Thank you so much, Steve Lishile, for your time on the show this morning.